Hello, and welcome to the Your Food Matters podcast. I'm Dr. Sue Kleiner here with my good friend and colleague, Erik Bustillo.
Hello, hello, everybody. Hi, Sue.
Hey, Erik. Well, today we have a really fun topic, and I have to shout out to my daughter Danielle, who said, "Mom, why don't you talk about beverages? Because that is really a confusing area." And I think it's such a great topic that I said, "Cool, let's do it."
Yeah, for sure. And it's a topic that I think oftentimes gets overlooked. Um, and I'll be honest, there's a lot that I don't know about this topic. So today I'm looking forward to asking questions and learning what you have to say about this. But it is a fun topic. You know, you have bubbles and no bubbles and this and that, and yeah, there's just so much out there.
Canned, bottled, plastic, powdered, all those options. And the beverage aisle, really the ready to drink aisle, has just grown and grown and grown. What's so funny is that it's over 10 years ago at this point for sure, maybe longer. I was part of a botanical beverage startup called Selixer. And I mean, you really had the botanical flavors, we had efficacious doses, worked with a world renowned herbalist, and we were charging $2.99 for a 12-ounce can. And that was considered too much money. And we really we were way too out in front of the crowd. And you when you're launching a product or even a book or an idea that no one has heard about yet ever isn't really in the public consciousness, it's really hard to make a go. And so we were really too out in front, and the company didn't make it. Today it would be like, "Oh my god, are you kidding? This is a great beverage." It would sell like crazy, and it would probably sell for 7.99 a can where 2.99 was too much. But
Wow.
ever since then, I've had this, real interest in ready to drink beverages and what's happening in that channel.
Yeah, and typically when someone hears ready to drink, I think that we automatically think of protein shakes. At least my head goes straight to ready
Yeah.
to drink. But there's so much more in ready to drink beverages outside of just protein. And also to think of the cost of things too. How, like you said, it was $2.99. It'd be way more than that now for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So when I think of beverages, there's the two sides of me. There's the dietitian who, when we ask people uh, to recall what they've been eating or give us a dietary recall of yesterday's meal, we're not only asking about food, but we ask about, what did you drink? What was the first thing when you woke up in the morning that you ate or drank? And we always say eat or drink. And the options for drinking now are really incredible. And so the first topic for me within this category of beverages is fun and taste. Like, why are people choosing these wild flavors, different ingredients, sometimes unknown ingredients? They're bottled and canned, usually in the cooler, but some of them you can buy just in a six pack or something like that. They often have really fun artwork on them. It almost becomes, when one person in a friend group starts drinking something, then you bring it to the party and everybody gets on the bandwagon and starts drinking it. So I think that there's a lot of fun around a lot of these new beverages.
And that's not something that my head typically goes to when I think of beverages, about fun and that sort of thing. But I'm also, I don't know if anyone out there listening is the same as me. My beverage uh, selection essentially is water and protein shakes. And then, you know, sometimes I might do like orange juice, or I do love like mango like type juices, but I don't really venture outside of that. You know, maybe a little something here and there. I'll throw some electrolytes in my water from time to time, but also, I'm not particularly a fan of like bubbles and those sorts of things. And I think that adds to the fun part of it, right?
Right. Yeah, and new flavors, things that we've never had before. One of the one that's really come in really strong is elderberry, right? That's like, what does elderberry taste like? Or floral flavors, rose flavored, and we get orange water, or different sort of notes of flavors that people typically didn't think of before. And and I think a lot of these canned beverages, because of the cost, they get rolled into the food budget. So it's almost like, well, this is part of my food budget. I'm spending, $6 to $8 on a can of something to drink. That Where does that fit? And what, do I have to is that substituting for something else in my diet that I otherwise would be eating based on cost? And so those are things I know people are weighing right now, and what are the benefits of some of these beverages?
I can't help but wonder why they cost so much. Because there's I mean, I wouldn't blame someone if they just opted for, your leading brand name soda uh beverage, because it's not going to be as expensive, and it has the bubbles, and I mean it tastes good, whatever company people prefer or like. But also it's not going to have either maybe certain added nutrients or anything along those lines, or obviously soda, it's not going to come with health benefits associated to it. But then some of these beverages might have that.
And that's the big question. Are there really benefits? And
Mm.
I that's the second area to talk about, I think. Once we get past I drink this for fun. Um when you're drinking it for a specific action, that it has active ingredients, we can think about adaptogens as a category, which is always kind of a nebulous area. We do have much more research on these right now. We've got ginseng and ashwagandha. Ginseng, very old school. Ashwagandha, also not a new herb for sure, not a new botanical, but new to the more public or general public consciousness. And the concept of an adaptogen is that it just generally makes you feel better. Um, Pretty hard to nail down in a research study, although there are some studies, and basically we call them more heuristic studies, meaning we just ask people, how do you feel? And there's something to that data, right? If someone can say to you, when I consume this over time, I feel better, well, a brand cares about that because it means that consumer is going to keep consuming whatever that is. So those are it is valuable data. So these beverages we call more functional beverages, more than just fun to drink, cool taste. Um, and and that's a big area where if you're being charged 7.99 for an 8 to 12 ounce can, we would expect it should actually do something besides just taste good or be fun, because it's telling you, may not make a claim, but you're buying it because you believe actually has enough of whatever that herb or root or whatever it is, that it's actually going to do something, it's going to deliver on a promise.
I would hope so. If I'm going to be paying that amount, I would hope that it's gonna do something, and even just like if I pull up my phone, and obviously this is where you can see confusion around this topic. Um, if you do a Google search, and I did it right now really quick, and I just put beverages with adaptogens, immediately on Google, it's going to show you like to buy them. It's going to give you
Right,
that option. It
right,
says like
that's first.
sponsored. Um, but it gives you like you can swipe left and it'll show you different options. Um, and it populated 40 like on that main Google screen. Like if you go here on this
Right,
thing, It's usually going to be no more than maybe 10, but this it populated 40 of them. Um, and all of them have some sort of different color marketing, the letters, the
Yeah,
very fruity
right,
looking
and I
thing.
said so, they're fun.
They make it look very fun. But there's this premise, right? That
Right,
it's gonna be good for you. It's maybe better than water. It's better than soda, and it has these other things in there. So it comes some mushroom thing, some turmeric thing. Um, so it's gonna be good for your health. So
right,
pay the $8 or whatever it is for this
right.
can, and you're gonna be a better human, healthier, right?
Right, right. And so those are the questions. So the first thing is when you and I talk about is it better than soda? Well, let's start with how much sugar is in it. And some of them do have sugar because they are promoting themselves as all natural. Others will use some kind of alternative sweetener like stevia and monk fruit or something like that. And those then don't have the calories and the carbs, but they also, um, have a different flavor profile than something with sugar. So that's something where the consumer decides what do you like, what are you looking for, what matters to you. And then once you've made that choice, does it have what we call an efficacious dose? So let's just pick ashwagandha just for one of the most popular ingredients right now, blowing up. Well, the research on ashwagandha, and this is important for anyone to ask these questions about whatever product you're buying, whether it's a supplement or it's a food beverage. An efficacious dose is not only the amount, but when we're talking about a plant product, is the active ingredient found in the leaves? Is it found in the stem? Is it found in the roots? Are there different actions based on where it comes from in the plant? And does it change season by season? So if you're buying ashwagandha from the sort of eastern hemisphere, do you need to change where you're purchasing from by season because in the winter, the plant actually doesn't have the active ingredient. It may go back down into the roots. And if you're just picking the leaves or the stem, you're not getting the active ingredient. You're still buying the plant, but it doesn't have the active ingredient. Or does it store well if it is picked in the summer and processed? Does it last? Does Is it shelf stable? So when it comes to ashwagandha in particular, if you look it up just in general, you will find that there's research on the roots, on the stem, and on the leaves, that there is active ingredient in all three. But the most active ingredient, the most efficacious ingredient, is from the roots. But there's now so much pressure to meet supply and demand that now it's broadening out, and some brands are just getting what they can get, and it's from the leaves or it's from the stem, it's not from the roots. And maybe it's less expensive to get it from the leaves because then you don't kill the plant, you're not pulling up the roots. So there's so much involved in whether or not, just to begin with, is the ingredient active? Now, in the beverage that you're drinking, are they just sprinkling it over like fairy dust, or are they actually putting enough in there to make a difference? And so I can tell you that in most cases, unless there's data from the brand showing that they have an efficacious dose of the active ingredient and they talk about it, if they don't talk about it, then you don't have an efficacious dose in the product. It's just not there because brands that do have it will crow about it.
Most definitely, and that makes complete sense because if you have something that is actually going to provide an amount that will have a positive effect or some kind of effect. Because I mean, with ashwagandha, we're looking at around 1,000 milligrams to be taken, right? And in many cases, it might be 600 milligrams twice a day, or something along those
Right.
lines. If they're not promoting that, my head would also go to, yeah, this probably doesn't have an efficacious amount, but they might do such a good job of marketing
Right.
that it would still get my attention. I'll be like, well, look, it has. And me knowing the things that I know, like I would ask those questions, but I'll still be like, hey, it's got ashwagandha. Like, it's got to be good.
And tons of these beverages have what they call proprietary blends. And so it's got ashwagandha and licorice root and ginseng and yada yada. It's just a whole, basically, it's everything but the kitchen sink is thrown in there. But like I said, it may not be enough of anything to actually do anything, but it gets your attention. It sounds like, I always say, like the dial goes up to 11. It's just so powerful that you assume it's working for you. So then maybe, and there is something to this, you get a placebo effect. Well, there really is a placebo effect. And if you feel better by drinking this, well, more power to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because people will oftentimes ask the question, should I take this? Should I do that? Am I doing the right thing? And I'm kind of like, well, this is what studies will show based on what you are using.
Right.
But ultimately, if you feel really good doing what you're doing and there are no studies to support it, but you feel good, I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right. And as long as you're not foregoing a treatment,
Hmm.
for example, if you have a diagnosis and there is a medical treatment, but you are foregoing that treatment because you've heard or read about an alternative treatment that you believe in, that's where the danger comes because you're using an alternative treatment with no data to support it. It is in the end, the probability is that it is unlikely to treat your disease successfully, and now you've waited longer, your disease has progressed, and the actual medical treatment may not work anymore either. So that's the danger of foregoing, instead of thinking of alternative treatments as complementary, that we don't call them alternative anymore. We call, whether it's massage or you know all different kinds of things, they're complementary, no longer alternative, because they these will not fix you completely, right? We want to do as many things that complement each other as possible, and we really do have data on certain things. So a couple of stories that I wanted to share before we roll out today. The first one, and when we talked about beverages, you mentioned kombucha.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very get. I get off. I often get asked. I'm sorry about kombucha, and I find it quite interesting and slightly entertaining on how popular it has become and how some people are just like it's the best thing ever. Um, but yeah. Anyway.
Well, so it's fermented tea, just clearly. It is a fermented tea product. Sometimes fruit, you know, fruit juices are added. Certainly sugar is in there because the the yeast that ferments it has to eat something. It's eating the sugar. It has what we call a mother, or I can't remember. I've lost the right now. I know what it's called. The actual sort of lump of fermented mass at the bottom of it. I call it mother because I'm very much a baker, but it's the same concept as sourdough, uh, and um, and so when it as it progresses in its fermentation, it goes from sort of a very, very, very low alcohol content, almost unmeasurable. And the older it gets, the more it ferments, the more you're going to end up with an alcoholic beverage. Well, so when kombucha first became popular, it was kind of a cultural thing, and people were making it at home and more or less controlled. They just knew it's time to drink this now, and the alcohol content was fairly low. The first time it was bottled for mass sales uh, a grocery store product, Whole Foods a number of years ago was the first to carry bottled kombucha, and they had it on an end cap, and it started selling, and then it started selling like crazy, and it was running out of the store, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And what they realized was that had not been any control in the manufacturing to stop the fermentation, and so the alcohol content had continued to rise, and people were buying it because it was alcohol, basically. And I don't know if the individual people buying it understood why they felt so happy when they were drinking it. It was really funny, and what happened is USDA came in, checked it, measured it, and said, "You gotta take this off the shelf. You don't have you know, you're selling it to everybody." And that's when they learned what needed to be done, that you had to stop the fermentation process before you bottled it. And that but that was a funny story. Um, the next and if anyone gets off tasting kombucha, where you think, wow, this almost is too strong, there may have been a problem in the processing. So be careful, but they're really, I mean, today it's well known how to manage it, and it's typically never a problem. The other thing is, I just tried a brand new botanical the other day that I had not heard of. If anyone is from the southeast of the US, you may have heard of this. It's called Yaupon. Yaupon.
Never.
So never, yeah. So I was at my Mercer Island Farmers Market, and um, there was a booth. These two young men starting up a new company, making a beverage out of this plant. It's a cousin of yerba mate, but yerba mate is grown in South America, Latin America. Um, Yaupon is native or indigenous to the southeast of the United States. It actually was a common indigenous beverage until the United States government ripped people out of their homes and sent them to other places in the country where they couldn't grow it. But there's a very small new interest in this plant. It's really interesting. It tastes sort of, when you first drink it, it's dark, like a dark tea or coffee, and it tastes like tea up front, but then the sort of the taste at the end is like coffee. It's like,
Huh.
they describe it as if tea and coffee got married and had a baby. So it was just like kind of a
Interesting.
it's really interesting. It is high in caffeine, theobromine, numerous other phytochemicals. It's got probably a lot of health benefits. They actually blend it in a traditional way with corn, with a powdered local indigenous to the southeast corn. I think it was like a sort of a reddish color corn, and they make almost a coffee like or espresso beverage with milk. They were making it either with oat milk. I suppose you could make it with almond milk. I had it with regular cow's milk. I enjoyed it. I really liked it, and it certainly gave you a buzz.
That is so interesting. And so I mean, personally, I like learning about all these different things that are new and I've never heard of. Um, but I've never heard of that Yao Pan before, and yeah, and the story on the kombucha was just, I mean, Their sales probably went way up when.
Way up. It's a funny story. But with this Yaupan, so I looked it up. I came home and I asked Uncle Google, what what's the history, and it actually was known. It's got the Latin name is, I can't remember what the first name is, the genus, but the family name or species name is vomiticus or something, because it
Huh.
actually was used as an emetic or made you throw up. um, and that was at much higher doses. They think it probably was a very high dose of caffeine that made people vomit, and it was used almost medicinally. Like if you ate something bad, if you ate something poisonous. It also probably was used in various spiritual ceremonies. Um, but but the high caffeine level can, you can react that way, but this is at a much higher level than what they're using in this beverage.
And this is available in stores and all that. So you
I
had it
don't
from a
think so.
commercial.
I don't think
Huh.
so. Not yet. So it's kind of the story of yerba mate. If you ever get a chance to read that story, was this very slow process of introducing it to the general public. And this young man he still owns it. Um, that was a uh, a big we've heard it, sort of this interesting entrepreneurial story of how he ultimately made it. And now these guys are kind of want to follow in those footsteps, hopefully not as slow, but so they're starting out at farmers markets. I think they have the exclusive rights from this one farmer somewhere in the southeast. It might be Georgia, who's growing it. And the corn was saved again, also almost went to extinction and was regrown. And so they're investing in these small indigenous farms in the southeast, and hoping to start, kind of a new thing.
That's so interesting. So cool how these things just kind of come to be.
Yeah, so I was just lucky that I'm on the board of the Mercer Island Farmers Market, and I'm always there, and I didn't miss these guys. They were at our harvest market the other day, and it'll be interesting. I mean, watch for it, see if it shows up somewhere else. I have no idea if it's something that is sort of growing up in several different places at the same time, or if it's just these guys.
I'll definitely be on the lookout for that now.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. It's again, I had never considered things like beverages being fun and that sort of thing. Kind of changing my view on that and the marketing to how it tastes and all of that different features.
But, just like our world with supplements, it's like, don't buy something if they can't prove to you that it works. If you're buying it
Yep.
for a specific reason, for an action that's supposed to have, that you believe there's a health claim, well, then make sure there's enough in there to do something for you.
Most definitely. And I like what you said about seeking the alternative medicine and when people do that and it's kind of like, look, it's not a lot of times you hear that about like cancer treatment and that sort of thing and it's just like there's room for everything, but we have proven methods of treating illness and disease, but it doesn't hurt to incorporate other things like yes changing your diet and incorporating meditation and all of that, so there's room for everything
Right. Right. It's as a compliment.
as a compliment. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think we've kept ourselves under 30 minutes. Yay.
Awesome. Awesome.
Well, take care, Eric. Have a great week, and we'll reconnect.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
And if you enjoyed our podcast, you can find us on all the podcast platforms. You can find us on the YouTube channel from the Move Nutrition Network, where you can see us as well as listen to us. And please Please subscribe and share us with your friends.